Jake Morrison stared at the screen in disbelief. After 20 years in the United Earth Defense Force, he thought he had seen everything, but nothing could have prepared him for this moment. The massive alien ships hung in space like dark mountains, their hulls gleaming under the distant light of the sun. They had appeared without warning at the edge of the solar system, and now they were sending a message. The communication came through in perfect English, though the voice sounded cold and mechanical. Jake's hands trembled slightly as he activated the recording system. This was it. First contact with an alien species, but the words that followed made his blood run cold. Attention, primitive species of the third planet. You are now under the authority of the Zephyrian Empire. Your world has been designated for resource acquisition and population management under Imperial Decree 7749. You have 72 hours to surrender all military forces and submit to Imperial processing. Resistance will result in complete sterilization of your planet. This is your only warning. The message ended with coordinates for humanity's response. Jake sat in stunned silence for several minutes before his training kicked in. He immediately contacted Admiral Lisa Carter at Earth Defense Command. Within an hour, emergency meetings were happening in every major capital on Earth. Lisa Carter had dedicated her life to protecting Earth from threats. She had always imagined those threats would come from other humans, not from the stars. She reviewed the alien transmission for the 10th time. She felt the weight of 7 billion lives on her shoulders. The aliens had made their intentions clear. This was not a negotiation. It was a demand for total surrender. Dr. Alex Thompson arrived at the emergency session with dark circles under his eyes. He had been analyzing every second of the alien message, looking for clues about their technology and intentions. What he found was worse than anyone had feared. They're not here to trade or explore, Alex explained to the assembled world leaders. The language they use suggests they see us as nothing more than animals to be herded. Resource acquisition means they want our planet's materials. Population management means they plan to use humans as workers in their empire. President Dan Harris slammed his fist on the table. How many ships are we looking at? Our deep space monitors count at least 300 vessels in their main fleet, Lisa replied. But they've only sent a small group closer to Earth. Maybe 50 ships. They seem confident that's all they need. General Katie Brooks leaned forward. What kind of weapons are we dealing with? As if in answer to her question, the aliens provided a demonstration. One of their escort vessels, barely larger than Earth's biggest destroyer, fired a single beam at a nearby asteroid. The space rock, which had been the size of a city block, simply vanished. No explosion, no debris. It was there one moment and gone the next. The room fell silent. Every person present understood what they had just witnessed. The smallest alien ship could destroy anything humanity had ever built with a single shot. The technological gap between Earth and the Zephyrian Empire was like comparing a stone knife to a nuclear weapon. We have to surrender, said the representative from the European Union. Look at what they can do. We don't stand a chance. Never, Katie Brooks shot back. Humanity has never surrendered to bullies, and we're not starting now. This isn't about pride, the EU representative argued. This is about survival. If we fight, they'll kill everyone on Earth. Dr. Thompson cleared his throat. There's something else. I've been analyzing their ship formations and communication patterns. They're used to easy victories. Every other species they've encountered has either surrendered immediately or been crushed within hours. They've never faced prolonged resistance. Lisa Carter studied the tactical displays. What are you thinking, Alex? I'm thinking they're overconfident. They sent only 50 ships because they expect us to fold like everyone else. They're treating this like a routine operation, not a military campaign. President Harris stood up. What's our actual military capability against them? Katie Brooks pulled up Earth's defensive statistics. We have 12 orbital defense platforms, 43 destroyers, 8 battleships, and about 200 smaller craft. Our best weapons are nuclear missiles and railguns. Against their technology, She paused. Honestly, sir, we might destroy one or two of their ships before they wipe us out. But they don't know that, Lisa said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. They don't know our exact capabilities. They're assuming we're primitive based on our radio signals and visible technology. What if we're not as primitive as they think? Dr. Thompson's eyes lit up. The black projects, the experimental weapons programs that have been classified for decades. What black projects? President Harris demanded. Lisa and Katie exchanged glances. Sir, there are several advanced weapon systems that have been developed in secret. Quantum beam weapons, cloaking technology, fusion reactors that can power city-sized defensive shields. Most of it is still experimental, but they don't know that, the president finished. How long would it take to make these systems operational? Some of them already are, Katie admitted. We've been testing them for years. The problem is we only have a few prototypes. Not enough to fight a real war. Then we don't fight a real war, Lisa said. We fight a smart war. The debate continued for hours. Some nations wanted to surrender immediately, terrified by the alien demonstration of power. Others argued for a fighting retreat, hoping to buy time for evacuation. But a third option began to emerge from the discussions. What if we make them think we're surrendering? President Harris asked. What if we use that surrender to get them into a position where our limited advanced weapons can do the most damage? Katie Brooks smiled grimly. A trap. Make them overconfident. Then hit them when they're not expecting it. It's our only chance, Lisa agreed. If we fight them head-on, we lose in minutes. But if we're smart about it, if we use their arrogance against them… Dr. Thompson was already working on his computer. I can prepare a surrender message that makes us sound appropriately defeated. Meanwhile, we move our real weapons into position and wait for the right moment. As the meeting broke up, each representative returned to their nations with the same message. Humanity would not go quietly into slavery. They would fight, but they would fight smart. The aliens expected another easy victory, another primitive species to add to their empire. They were about to learn that humans were full of surprises. Jake Morrison received his new orders an hour later. Prepare Earth's official surrender, but keep the real defenses hidden and ready. As he began drafting humanity's response to the alien ultimatum, he couldn't help but smile. The Zephyrian Empire was about to discover that underestimating humanity was a very dangerous mistake. President Dan Harris stood before the cameras, his face carefully arranged in an expression of defeat. Behind him, the flags of every nation on Earth hung at half-staff. To anyone watching, including the alien monitors they knew were listening, this looked like the surrender of a broken species. People of Earth, Harris began, his voice heavy with false resignation. After careful consideration of the overwhelming force arrayed against us, the United Nations has voted to accept the terms offered by the Zephyrian Empire. We surrender unconditionally and will comply with all imperial directives. Captain Ryan Walsh watched the broadcast from his hidden command center 3 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains. The facility didn't officially exist, and according to all records, Ryan was supposed to be on vacation in Florida. Instead, he was coordinating the most important military operation in human history. Phase 1 complete, Ryan reported into his secure communicator. The surrender broadcast is live. All Zephyrian monitoring stations should be receiving it now. Dr. Maya Johnson looked up from her quantum beacon array. Good. That should buy us the time we need. How long until the alien response? Intelligence estimates they'll move their occupation force within 6 hours, Ryan replied. They'll want to secure Earth quickly and move on to their next target. The Empire runs on a tight schedule. Maya nodded and returned to her work. The quantum beacons were her creation, devices that could mask energy signatures and create false readings on alien sensors. If her calculations were correct, these beacons would make Earth's advanced defenses invisible to Zephyrian scans. The aliens would see only what humanity wanted them to see. Lieutenant Colonel Ben Parker emerged from the communications center with a grim smile. We're intercepting Zephyrian transmissions. Their commander is already planning victory celebrations. Governor Thex Moran thinks this assignment is beneath him. He's treating Earth like a routine paperwork exercise. Perfect, Ryan said. Overconfidence is exactly what we need. What about their fleet deployment? Ben consulted his tablet. Just as we hoped. They're keeping their main armada in the outer system. Only 47 ships are moving toward Earth. They figure that's more than enough to handle a surrendered planet. Meanwhile, on the surface, Colonel Amy Foster was preparing her part of the deception. Her unit was positioned outside Denver, ready to put on a show for the incoming alien forces. They had stripped their equipment of any advanced technology, making sure they looked like the primitive military the aliens expected to find. Remember, Amy told her soldiers, we're supposed to be a broken, demoralized force offering token resistance. Fire a few shots, look scared, then retreat when they advance. Make it believable, but don't take any unnecessary risks. Sergeant, Bill Cooper checked his rifle one more time. What if they don't buy it, Colonel? What if they figure out we're acting? Then we improvise, Amy replied. But according to intelligence, the Zephyrians have conquered over 300 worlds and every single one surrendered or died within hours. They've never seen a species that fights back after surrender. They won't know what to look for. 3 hours after the surrender broadcast, the first Zephyrian ships entered Earth's atmosphere. They moved with the casual confidence of conquerors who had done this many times before. Their landing craft touched down in major cities around the world, disgorging troops in gleaming armor who expected to find cowering humans ready for processing. Instead, they found carefully prepared chaos. In New York, Captain Helen Scott led a small unit in what appeared to be a desperate last stand near the ruins of an evacuated building. Her soldiers fired outdated weapons that barely scratched the alien armor before retreating in apparent panic. The Zephyrian forces followed, confident they were mopping up the last holdouts. What they didn't know was that Helen's retreat led them directly over one of Maya's quantum beacon arrays. As the aliens passed overhead, the beacons activated, scanning their equipment and transmitting the data to hidden analysis centers around the globe. In London, Major Tom Wilson staged a similar performance. His unit fired rockets that exploded harmlessly against Zephyrian shields, then fled through the subway tunnels. The aliens pursued, spreading their forces thin as they chased what they thought were the remnants of Earth's military. Governor Thex Morin established his command center in what had been the United Nations building. The human delegates were gone, evacuated along with most of the city's population. He surveyed the empty chambers with satisfaction, already composing his report to the Empire. Another world conquered, another primitive species added to the Imperial workforce. Status report, he commanded his aide. All major population centers are under our control, Governor. We've encountered some scattered resistance, but nothing significant. A few human military units are still fighting in remote areas, but they're no threat to our operations. Thex Moran nodded. Excellent. Begin processing the civilians. I want this world fully integrated into the Empire within one standard cycle. What the governor didn't know was that every word of his conversation was being recorded by hidden sensors that Ryan's team had planted throughout the building. The humans were learning everything about Zephyrian command structure, technology, and plans. Dr. Alex Thompson sat in his concealed laboratory, analyzing the data streaming in from around the globe. The quantum beacons were working perfectly, providing detailed scans of alien technology while remaining undetected. But what he was discovering made his blood run cold. Ryan, you need to see this, Alex called urgently. Captain Walsh hurried over to Alex's workstation. What is it? I've been analyzing the Zephyrian databases that our beacons accessed. It's worse than we thought. They don't just conquer species and use them as workers. They completely erase their cultures, their languages, even their memories of who they used to be. Every conquered race becomes identical, mindless drones who exist only to serve the Empire. Ryan stared at the data in horror. How many species have they done this to? 317 confirmed cases, entire civilizations, billions of individuals, all reduced to empty shells. And Earth is next on their list. The weight of this revelation settled over the hidden command center. This wasn't just about military conquest or even slavery. The Zephyrian Empire was committing genocide on a scale that defied comprehension. They were erasing the very essence of what made each species unique. We can't let that happen, Ryan said quietly. Whatever it takes, we can't let them do that to humanity. Maya looked up from her instruments. The good news is that our deception is working. Their forces are scattered across the globe, chasing fake resistance cells. They think they're in complete control. Ben Parker joined the conversation. Intelligence reports that Zephyrian confidence is at maximum levels. They've relaxed their defensive protocols and are operating under minimal security. They genuinely believe Earth is conquered. Then it's time for Phase 2, Ryan decided. How long until our real weapons are in position? 18 hours, Maya replied. The orbital platforms are powering up under cloak and the ground-based systems are almost ready. But Ryan, once we reveal our true capabilities, there's no going back. They'll call in their entire fleet. Ryan Walsh looked around at his team, at the people who had volunteered to risk everything for humanity's freedom. Then we better make sure our first strike counts. Signal all units. Tomorrow the Zephyrian Empire learns that humans don't break as easily as they think. As night fell over Earth, the aliens celebrated what they thought was another easy victory. But in hidden bunkers and concealed bases around the world, humanity prepared to show them the truth. The surrender had been a lie. The resistance was just beginning, and the Zephyrian Empire was about to face their first real enemy in 3 centuries of conquest. Dr. Roy Jenkins hadn't slept in 36 hours. His eyes burned as he stared at the alien communication intercepts scrolling across his screen. But what he was reading kept him wide awake. Hidden in his bunker beneath what used to be the Chicago Science Museum, Roy was listening to the most chilling conversations in human history. The Zephyrian communications were casual, almost bored. They discussed humanity the way farmers might talk about livestock. But it was the historical data that made Roy's hands shake as he typed his report. Captain Walsh, you need to see this immediately. Roy spoke into his secure communicator. Within minutes, Ryan's voice crackled back through the encrypted channel. What have you found, Roy? I've broken into their historical databases. Ryan, what they do to conquered species, it's not just slavery. They have a process called cultural sterilization. They use neural implants to erase every memory, every tradition, every story that makes a species unique. Then they rebuild the minds with only imperial programming. Roy pulled up file after file of conquered worlds. The Kalari used to be master artists who created sculptures from light itself. Now they're construction drones who don't even remember what art means. The Vorthak were explorers who had mapped half the galaxy. Now they mine asteroids and can't remember ever seeing the stars. Captain Ryan Walsh felt sick as he listened. How long does the process take? 6 months from conquest to complete mental restructuring. They're planning to start with Earth's children because young minds are easier to reprogram. Ryan, they're going to steal our humanity and turn us into empty shells wearing human faces. The communication ended, and Roy returned to his analysis. But he wasn't the only one making disturbing discoveries. Captain Helen Scott was conducting reconnaissance missions that revealed just how unprepared the Zephyrians were for real resistance. Helen crouched in the ruins of a building overlooking the alien command post in New York. Through her scope, she watched Zephyrian soldiers moving with lazy confidence. They had removed their helmets and were chatting casually as they patrolled. Their weapons weren't even powered up. This is Recon Team Alpha, Helen whispered into her radio. The aliens are completely relaxed. No defensive positions, minimal. Guards and their equipment is running on standby power. They think this planet is secured. Commander Sam Wright, monitoring communications from his post in the ruins of NORAD, was discovering similar patterns. I'm tracking their fleet movements, Sam reported. The main armada hasn't moved from the outer system. The occupation force on Earth is operating independently, with minimal contact with their command ships. They're treating this like a routine cleanup operation. But it was Intelligence Chief Carol Evans who uncovered the most important information. Working from a hidden facility beneath the Nevada desert, Carol had been tracking Zephyrian supply lines and communication networks. What she found changed everything. Ryan, I've mapped their entire local operation. Carol's voice was tense with excitement. The Zephyrians aren't just overconfident about Earth. They're stretched thin across dozens of worlds. Their forces are divided, their supply lines are extended, and they're dealing with minor uprisings on at least 6 planets. Uprisings? Ryan asked. Small ones. Nothing that threatens Imperial control, but enough to keep their security forces busy. The Empire has grown too fast, taken on too many worlds. They're managing through fear and overwhelming force, but they don't have the manpower to actually control everything they've conquered. Carol's revelation sparked an idea that would change the entire operation. If the Empire was stretched thin, if other species were already showing signs of resistance, then Earth's rebellion could be the spark that lit a galaxy-wide revolution. Meanwhile, the aliens were beginning to notice things that didn't quite add up. Imperial tech specialist Krev was reviewing the energy readings from Earth's major cities when he spotted anomalies that troubled him. "Commander," Krev approached his superior officer, "I'm detecting energy signatures that don't match the primitive technology we observed during our initial scans." The Zephyrian commander barely looked up from his victory report. "Probably just their power plants shutting down after the surrender. These primitive species always have chaotic energy patterns during the transition period." But Krev wasn't satisfied. He had conquered 43 worlds for the Empire, and something about Earth felt different. The humans were too calm, too organized, in their surrender. On other worlds there was panic, chaos, desperate attempts to hide or flee. On Earth, the population had evacuated in an orderly fashion that suggested advanced planning. "Sir, I recommend we conduct deeper scans of the planetary surface. Some of these readings could indicate hidden installations." "Absolutely not," the commander snapped. "Governor Thexmoran has declared this world secured. We're not wasting time and resources chasing sensor ghosts. Focus on processing the civilian population." Unknown to the aliens, their conversation was being monitored by Commander Sam Wright. As soon as Krev mentioned deeper scans, Sam activated an emergency protocol. "All units, Code 7, Sam broadcasted on the resistance frequency. "They're getting suspicious. Accelerate timeline to immediate status." In his bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, Captain Ryan Walsh received the warning and made a command decision that would determine humanity's fate. "All stations, this is command. We're moving to Phase 3 ahead of schedule. Dr. Johnson, are the quantum shields ready?" Maya's voice came back stressed but confident. 80% operational. It's not perfect, but it should hold. It'll have to be enough. Signal all resistance cells. In 6 hours, we show them what humanity is really capable of." As the order went out, resistance fighters around the globe began their final preparations. Colonel Amy Foster's unit stopped their fake retreat and began moving toward their real targets. The time for deception was almost over. But the most important revelation was yet to come. Dr. Alex Thompson had been analyzing Zephyrian technology for days, looking for weaknesses in their ships and weapons. What he discovered was that the Empire's greatest strength was also their greatest vulnerability. Their technology is incredibly advanced but completely standardized, Alex explained to the emergency council meeting. Every ship has the same design. Every weapon uses the same energy frequency. Every shield operates on identical principles. They've conquered so many worlds that they've become completely predictable. Admiral Lisa Carter leaned forward. "What does that mean for us?" "It means that if we can find a weakness in one ship, we can exploit it against their entire fleet. They've traded adaptability for efficiency, and that's going to cost them." Alex pulled up technical schematics on his screen. "I've identified 17 critical vulnerabilities in their ship's designs. If we hit them with the right frequency weapons at the right spots, we can cause cascade failures that will cripple entire vessels." The pieces were falling into place. The aliens were overconfident, their forces were scattered, and their technology had exploitable weaknesses. But most importantly, humanity had learned that they weren't fighting just for Earth. They were fighting for every species the Empire had enslaved, and for every world that would be conquered in the future. "We're not just defending Earth, Ryan," Walsh realized as he looked at the intelligence reports. "We're fighting for the freedom of the entire galaxy. If we can break the Empire here, we can break them everywhere. The revelation energized the resistance. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about liberation on a scale that no one had imagined possible. And in 6 hours, the Zephyrian Empire would learn that humanity wasn't just another primitive species to be conquered and processed. They were about to discover that Earth was where empires came to die. The attack began at dawn. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the command center of what the aliens thought was a destroyed military facility. Around her, screens flickered to life showing targets across the globe. For the past week, humanity had pretended to be a broken, conquered species. Now it was time to show their true strength. All stations, this is Admiral Carter. Execute Operation Revelation. Show them what Earth is really made of. The first sign of humanity's deception came from the mountains of Colorado. What looked like solid rock suddenly split open, revealing massive railgun installations that had been hidden for years. The weapons were powered by experimental fusion reactors that the aliens had never detected. Captain Neil Baker sat in the command chair of the EDS Defender, Earth's most advanced warship. For the past week, his ship had been disguised as orbital debris, floating dead in space while Zephyrian vessels passed nearby. Now the Defender's cloaking systems deactivated, and the massive battlecruiser appeared as if from nothing. Target acquired, Neil's weapons officer reported. Zephyrian command ship bearing 270. Fire, Neil ordered. The Defender's main guns spoke with the voice of human defiance. Quantum-enhanced projectiles slammed into the alien command vessel, punching through shields that had never been penetrated before. The Zephyrian ship erupted in brilliant explosions as its own power systems overloaded. Across Earth's surface, similar scenes played out. Hidden missile silos opened in the ocean floors, launching weapons that used the aliens' own energy frequencies against them. Mountain peaks that had concealed defensive positions revealed massive beam weapons that carved through Zephyrian hulls like paper. Governor Thexamoran was reviewing processing reports when his command center shook violently. Warning alarms screamed as his technicians scrambled to understand what was happening. Report, he shouted over the noise. Sir, we're under attack. Multiple human installations are firing on our forces. Energy readings are off the charts. Impossible. This species surrendered. Their technology is primitive. Another explosion rocked the building as one of Earth's hidden orbital platforms targeted the command center. The governor stared in shock at the tactical display showing dozens of human weapons systems that hadn't existed an hour ago. Sir, we've lost contact with 14 ships. The humans are using some kind of advanced weaponry that's cutting through our shields. Thexmoran's mind reeled. In 3 centuries of conquest, nothing like this had ever happened. Species didn't have secret weapons. They didn't pretend to surrender and then attack. They certainly didn't have technology that could threaten Imperial ships. But the humans were just getting started. Commander Jake Morrison sat at his communication station, preparing to deliver a message that would change galactic history. The human counterattack had been devastating, destroying nearly half the Zephyrian occupation force in the first hour. But this wasn't about winning a battle. This was about sending a message to the entire empire. Broadcasting on all Zephyrian frequencies, Jake announced. The transmission reached every alien ship in the solar system. It carried a simple message delivered in perfect Zephyrian, translated by linguists who had been studying the language for weeks. But it wasn't the words that shocked the aliens. It was the calm, confident tone of the human speaking them. Attention Zephyrian forces. This is Commander Jake Morrison of Earth Defense Command. Your occupation of our world has been terminated. You now have one opportunity to leave our system peacefully. If you choose to proceed with your invasion, you will discover why Earth has remained unconquered for 4 billion years. The message continued, but what followed made every Zephyrian commander's blood run cold. The humans transmitted detailed, technical specifications of Zephyrian ship designs, including classified vulnerabilities that only Imperial engineers were supposed to know. They provided tactical analyses of Zephyrian fleet movements that showed they had been watching the Empire's operations across multiple star systems. Most shocking of all, They transmitted the locations and defensive capabilities of 3 other Zephyrian fleets operating in nearby systems, including details about classified Imperial operations that were supposed to be completely secret. Captain Ryan Walsh watched the alien response from his command center. Intercepted Zephyrian communications showed confusion, fear, and growing panic among their forces. "How do they know our ship designs?" one alien captain was asking. "These readings are classified at the highest levels," another responded. "How did a primitive species access Imperial military databases?" What the aliens didn't understand was that humanity had been preparing for this moment much longer than they realized. Dr. Maya Johnson's quantum beacons hadn't just hidden Earth's defenses. They had been stealing alien data since the moment the Zephyrian fleet entered the solar system. "We've downloaded their entire tactical database," Maya reported with satisfaction. "Ship specifications, weapon capabilities, shield frequencies, command protocols. We know more about their technology than most of their own crews do." But the real revelation was yet to come. Intelligence Chief Carol Evans had been working around the clock to coordinate with resistance movements on other worlds. Her next transmission would shake the Empire to its core. "Attention all Imperial forces," Carol's voice cut across the communication channels. "This is Intelligence Chief Evans of Earth Command. We know about the resistance movements on Kalari Prime, the uprising on Vorthak 7, and the rebellion brewing on New Centauri. Earth extends protection and tactical support to any species seeking freedom from Imperial oppression." The message included detailed intelligence about Imperial operations across a dozen worlds, resistance contacts on conquered planets, and most damaging of all, evidence of corruption and incompetence within the Empire's command structure. Governor Thexmoran listened to the transmissions with growing horror. "How do they know about operations in other sectors? That information is classified at the highest levels of Imperial command." His aide was pale with fear. "Sir, if they have access to those databases, they might know about the Empire's strategic weaknesses. This could spark rebellions across the entire frontier." The governor was right to be afraid. On distant worlds, enslaved species received the Earth transmissions and learned that resistance was possible. The human analysis of Imperial tactics revealed vulnerabilities that local resistance fighters had never known existed. Admiral Carter received reports from around the globe as the human counterattack continued. "Status report on Zephyrian forces?" 32. "Ships destroyed or disabled," came the reply. "The remaining 15 are attempting to retreat to the outer system. Their formation discipline has completely collapsed." "Let them go," Carter ordered. "We want survivors to carry our message back to the Empire." Captain Neil Baker pursued the retreating Zephyrian ships just long enough to demonstrate that he could destroy them at will, then allowed them to escape. The message was clear. Humanity could have wiped out the entire occupation force, but chose mercy instead. The psychological impact was devastating. The Zephyrian Empire had built its power on the myth of invincibility. No species had ever defeated Imperial forces in open combat. No conquered world had ever successfully resisted processing. And no primitive planet had ever possessed technology that could threaten the Empire's finest ships. Earth had shattered all those myths in a single day. As news of the battle spread through subspace communications, the entire galaxy took notice. The Zephyrian Empire had been humbled by a species they had dismissed as primitive. The invincible conquerors had been forced to retreat from a single world. Commander Jake Morrison sent one final transmission to the fleeing alien ships. "The galaxy is under new management. Tyrants are no longer welcome here." The Zephyrian survivors limped back to their main fleet, carrying with them a message that would echo through the Empire's highest levels of command. Earth wasn't just another primitive world to be conquered and processed. It was the birthplace of a new galactic power, one that fought for freedom instead of domination. The Empire's response would determine the fate of the galaxy. Fleet Admiral Zorks had never faced defeat in his 40 years of service to the Zephyrian Empire. His reputation was built on swift, overwhelming victories that crushed resistance before it could even begin. But the reports from Earth's surface filled him with a rage that clouded his judgment. These humans dare to humiliate the Empire. Zorks snarled at his assembled commanders. They destroyed our ships, threatened our operations across the galaxy, and now they think they can dictate terms to us. Governor Thexmoran, his uniform still smoking from the attack on his command center, nodded eagerly. Admiral, we must respond, with maximum force. If word spreads that a primitive species defeated Imperial forces, it could spark rebellions throughout our territory. Admiral Zorks studied the tactical displays showing Earth's defenses. The humans had revealed impressive technology, but they were still just one small planet against the might of the Empire. His fleet of 300 ships could overwhelm any defense Earth could mount. Signal the main fleet, Zorks commanded. We advance on Earth immediately. This time we don't take prisoners, we don't process the population. We turn their planet into a warning that the galaxy will remember for 1,000 years. What Admiral Zorks didn't know was that every word of his conversation was being monitored by Earth's intelligence network. Commander Sam Wright listened from his hidden post as the alien fleet began moving toward Earth. "Ryan, they're coming," Sam reported. "Full fleet, all 300 ships, and they're not planning to take prisoners this time." Captain Ryan Walsh received the warning with grim satisfaction. This was exactly what humanity had been hoping for. A small occupation force could be defeated, but the Empire could claim it was just a tactical setback. But when their entire fleet was destroyed, the galaxy would know that the age of Zephyrian dominance was over. "All stations, this is command." They took the bait. "Prepare for Operation Liberation." Across the solar system, humanity's true defensive network came online. The asteroid belt, which had seemed empty and lifeless, suddenly blazed with hidden installations. Mining stations that appeared abandoned revealed themselves as military bases. What the aliens had thought was space debris transformed into a maze of weapons platforms and defensive positions. Captain Neil Baker smiled as his sensors detected the incoming Zephyrian fleet. The EDS Defender was no longer alone. Rising from concealment behind planets and moons, Earth's true fleet emerged. 50 warships that incorporated the best of human engineering and captured alien technology, all commanded by crews who had been training for this moment for years. But humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their ships or their hidden bases. It was their allies. Colonel Amy Foster coordinated with resistance cells across a dozen worlds as the final phase of Earth's plan began. The quantum communication network that Dr. Maya Johnson had developed didn't just connect Earth's forces. It linked every resistance movement in Imperial space. "All freedom fighters, this is Liberation Command," Amy broadcasted across the galaxy. "The Empire's main fleet is moving against Earth. Now is the time to strike. Targets and tactical data are being transmitted now." On Kalari Prime, enslaved artists who had forgotten how to create beauty suddenly remembered their purpose as human tactical advisors guided them to sabotage Imperial weapon factories. On Vorthax 7, former explorers who had been reduced to asteroid miners used their knowledge of space to coordinate attacks on Imperial supply ships across the Empire's territory. Resistance movements that had been isolated and hopeless suddenly found themselves part of a galaxy-wide rebellion, equipped with detailed intelligence about Imperial weaknesses and coordinated battle plans that human strategists had developed specifically for each world's unique situation. Admiral Zorks was reviewing his attack plans when the first reports of rebellion reached his flagship. "Sir, we're receiving distress calls from 6 different systems. The humans seem to be coordinating resistance movements across our territory." "Impossible," Zorks dismissed. "These are just minor uprisings. Local commanders can handle them." But the reports kept coming. Imperial installations were under attack on a dozen worlds. Supply lines were being cut. Communication networks were being jammed. And most disturbing of all, the rebels seemed to know exactly where to strike for maximum effect. "Admiral," his communications officer reported with growing panic, "we've lost contact with the Kalari system. The last transmission indicated that the orbital factories were under coordinated attack by multiple resistance cells." Zorks finally understood what he was facing. The humans hadn't just defeated one Imperial fleet. They had organized the largest rebellion in galactic history, turning the Empire's own conquests against them. But it was too late to turn back. The Zephyrian fleet was already committed to their attack on Earth, and Zorx's pride wouldn't let him retreat in the face of a primitive species. Captain Ryan Walsh watched the alien approach from his command center. The massive Zephyrian fleet moved in perfect formation, confident in their numerical superiority. They expected to overwhelm Earth through sheer force, just as they had conquered 300 other worlds. They were about to learn why Earth was different. "Maya, are all systems ready?" Ryan asked. Dr. Maya Johnson nodded from her station. "Quantum field generators at full power. Every asteroid, every hidden platform, every ship in our fleet is connected through the network. They're not fighting Earth's defenses. They're fighting a single coordinated intelligence that spans the entire solar system." The battle began when the Zephyrian fleet reached the asteroid belt. Admiral Zorx expected to sweep aside any obstacles and strike directly at Earth. Instead, his ships found themselves in a nightmare maze of shifting defenses that seemed to anticipate their every move. Asteroids that had appeared empty suddenly revealed hidden weapons that fired with deadly precision. The Zephyrians tried to adapt their formation, only to find that their enemies had already adjusted to counter their new tactics. Every time they gained an advantage, the human defenders shifted to eliminate it. Captain Neil Baker led Earth's fleet in a series of hit-and-run attacks that frustrated and confused the alien commanders. His ships appeared from behind planets, struck with devastating effect, then vanished into the maze of defensive installations before the Zephyrians could respond. "They're not fighting like any species we've encountered," one alien captain reported in confusion. "They adapt faster than our tactical computers can calculate." Admiral Zorx watched his formations crumble as human tactics proved superior to Imperial doctrine. Ships that had conquered hundreds of worlds were being outmaneuvered by defenders, who seemed to know their weaknesses better than they knew themselves. The tide turned completely when the resistance movements across the galaxy struck their final coordinated blow. Intelligence Chief Carol Evans had planned the timing perfectly. As the Imperial fleet struggled against Earth's defenses, every Imperial installation across a dozen worlds came under simultaneous attack. "Admiral," the communications officer's voice was barely above a whisper, "we're receiving surrender requests from our forces in 7 different systems. The rebellions are succeeding. Our local commanders are requesting immediate reinforcement." Admiral Zorx stared at the tactical display in disbelief. His mighty fleet was being defeated by a single planet's defenses, while the empire he had served. His entire life crumbled around him. 3 centuries of conquest were being undone in a matter of hours. The final blow came when Admiral Lisa Carter's flagship, the EDS Retribution, led a coordinated strike against the Imperial command vessel. Using tactical data stolen from Zephyrian databases, the human ships targeted the exact weaknesses that would cause cascade failures throughout the alien ship systems. Admiral Zorx felt his flagship shudder as human weapons tore through shields that had never failed before. Emergency alarms screamed as critical systems overloaded and shut down. Around him, his command crew worked frantically to save their ship, but the damage was too severe. "All ships retreat immediately," Zorx ordered, his voice heavy with defeat. "Signal the Empire. Tell them Earth is no longer a target for conquest." As the broken remnants of the Zephyrian fleet limped away from Earth, President Dan Harris delivered a message that would reshape galactic politics forever. "To all species under Imperial oppression, Earth offers protection and support in your fight for freedom. To the Zephyrian Empire, your age of conquest is over. This galaxy now belongs to those who choose cooperation over domination." The message was received across hundreds of worlds, sparking hope in enslaved populations and fear in Imperial commanders. Within days, the rebellion that had started on Earth spread to become a galaxy-wide revolution that would topple the Empire and free countless species from centuries of oppression. Humanity had answered the Empire's ultimatum not with surrender, but with liberation. They had shown the galaxy that freedom was possible, that tyrants could be defeated, and that even the mightiest empire could fall when faced with the united will of free peoples. The Zephyrian Empire had set its sights on Earth, expecting another easy conquest. Instead, they had discovered that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their refusal to accept that any species should live in slavery.